Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm sitting here with Joe Oltmann, candidate for Colorado governor, and also the founder of FEC and Conservative Daily Podcast, which is now Untamed Nation. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Jason.
Good to see you. Now, you fought for election integrity for the last 6-8 years now, it seems. What brought you into this race?
Well, I mean, I didn't get involved in anything having to do with politics until after 2020, and then 2020 came along. So just to clarify, I didn't set out to get involved in even the election fraud stuff. I was dealing with how do we give people in our communities the ability to fight back against things that were being revealed, right? So the grooming of children, what they were doing in schools, indoctrination, the changes of the in the economic structure of how schools are even operated or run, and then just shutting down small businesses, giving entitlements to bigger businesses, and that led me to create FEC United, and then that led me to get involved in elections because I was on that podcast, or excuse me, on that call with Eric Coomer when he said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Trump's not going to win." I made sure of it. That led to me getting involved in disclosing that 3 days after the election. And then that led to me then lifting up the skirt and saying, all right, as a system architect, a guy that runs a couple tech companies, is there anything to this? Could Dominion voting systems actually steal the election? So, my journey in this didn't start till December of 2020. And frankly, I've been involved in it ever since, just trying to get to the bottom of this nonsense. I will tell you that every election in the United States, in all 50 states, they're fraudulent. They're not, and you would say, Joe, that's impossible. And I would tell you, okay, well, I'm a system expert. This is what I do for a living. And I can use any of their systems and change the parameters of the program with just one person based on what the system structure is and change the outcome of any election from a local municipal election all the way up to the President of the United States in any election, given the systems that they operate.
Without the need for Dominion voting systems being connected to the internet as well, correct?
Well, we know that they were connected to the internet, and it was a part of the system architecture, but they lied about that to begin with. So they, again, all the lies seem to come out over time, and when the media apparatus and the political apparatus on both sides is telling you there's nothing to see here, there's definitely something to see there. But you don't necessarily have to have it connected to the internet, given the fact that eventually that information has to feed to a main database. That main database has to then go to Seidel then goes to Edison goes to the American people. So there's 4 steps, I call them the steps of nonsense, that have to occur in order for the American people to understand the vote. And that's the same if you were in a municipal election in Colorado, or you're talking about a statewide or national race as well.
Now, when Dominion got sold, was that like putting makeup on a pig? Did anything change?
Yeah, I mean, look, the substructure of the system, the procedures of the election system, they're all the same. And what we're finding out now is, look, if you don't believe that there's election fraud across the board now, you're either complicit or you're just a fool, because we have enough evidence, mountains of evidence, that show the structures of Dominion have not changed with the sale to Liberty. And we just saw what happened in Texas, and we saw what happened in Georgia, and we saw what happened with Dominion voting systems in Nevada. So even after the elections were transferred over to Liberty voting systems, we have major anomalies and major problems inside that system. But they're not the only ones. ES&S, Smartmatic, Clear Ballot, Hart, InterCivic, they're all based on the same substructure. They all share the same code base, every single one of them.
And we've already proven that in various other countries, they've utilized Dominion to overthrow constitutional governments or democratic governments.
Yeah, so if you believe the Venezuelan whistleblowers, it's 71 countries over the last 2 decades. If you don't believe them, you'd still be hard-pressed not to be able to put your finger on the outcomes of those elections in, say, 40 or 50 countries where we've literally destroyed the sovereignty of those nations and overtaken them. And this goes back to even Ukraine in the 2014 Maidan coup, where the CIA had to admit that they had a large presence in Ukraine when that country was overthrown there. So whether we're talking about Singapore or Malaysia or Mongolia, Serbia, I can go down a long list of nation states that we know have been influenced and destroyed by our intelligence apparatus that is directly tied into Dominion voting systems.
Now, I was just going to ask that question. How deep does this go? I mean, we know that central intelligence agencies, not only in the U.S., but also Mossad and across some of our allies, have overturned democratically elected presidents of countries and seated leaders of countries across the globe. How deep does it go in the United States?
I mean, have you seen Mitch McConnell?
Well, I've seen him.
Yeah,
I know what he
he's
looks like.
he's an empty shell of a man, right? I mean, the guy literally can't answer a question, gets rolled around. It reminds me of Feinstein before she died. This is a man that long ago should have been put out to pasture, meaning retired and lived out the rest of his life with dignity. Instead, they're carting him around trying to make it so the SAVE Act doesn't get passed. You'd be hard pressed not to, as an American, understand that we're a captured society, that leadership at every level, whether we're talking about school boards or Department of Education or what's happening in Colorado at a state level, that it was a state by state purposeful treason that had to exist. And you can look at the influences that have happened, not just on the Democrat side, but the fact that many of the reasons why we even have Dominion here in Colorado is because of Republicans, not Democrats. You had Wayne Williams and others that ushered them in, and they had to have known. They had to have known. This is not. Look, the American people didn't have their finger on the pulse, but I could tell you that in large part the leadership, including going back to the Clint Curtis 2004, also a Republican, and Feely, who was a congressman out of Florida, a Republican. They were the ones that came up with the idea of actually building an election system that could be able to switch votes without the people actually recognizing that the votes were being flipped.
Now, who do you believe is calling who's supposed to win this election? I mean, is it local county clerk and recorders? I mean, who's the driving force? Who goes, yeah, that guy's not going to win? Is it foreign intervention? Is it APAC?
Man, I mean, Jason, that's a tough question, because in order for me to answer that question, I've got to go to some dark places about how our apparatus operates inside our country, right? And if you were to take me back to 2020, obviously I spent 6.5 years in the Middle East and Africa, hanging out in places and doing things that were pretty spectacular. So I understood the apparatus of evil tied to our intelligence communities, which doesn't necessarily represent what the American people see every day. But I don't think it's singular. I think that there's more. I think George Soros is a part of it, but there's a body of people that I think is directly tied to the World Economic Forum and other foreign entities like WHO and such that I think are calling the shots. And if what I'm saying is wrong, then why the same things that we face in the United States are they faced in other nations? The UK has a large immigration issue. Ireland is completely overrun. France is a shell of its former self. Spain, man, I tell you what, it used to be a beautiful country, and now it's overrun by criminal gangs that are from the Middle East or North Africa region. So we're facing the same problem. Even Japan has the same issues with destroying the ethos of that country with mass immigration. You try to figure out where it comes from, they just can't put their finger on it either. So I think it's a purposeful way to destroy and to degrade nations so that a small group of people can control what happens globally.
So does this go back to the idea of a one world government, one world currency, one world religion? Is that what all of this is leading towards?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, so I want to say yes, while at the same time recognizing that none of what we're dealing with right now is sensible, right? None of the stuff that we're dealing with gender identity or the fact that now you can be a pink dinosaur or a cat with a litter box, none of that stuff makes any sense to me, right? And so when you start talking about world religion, well, is it the Muslim faith then? Because in Texas, they have 3 mosques that are put up every month, right? And the Christian church has largely been degraded. If you're white in this country, you're bad and you need to pay reparations. And there's just all these different holes in the boat that you have to fill, and it creates this chaos. And most people in the real world step back from chaos. They're like, I don't want anything to do with it because it fatigues you. And so is there a purposeful thing that's being done right now to drive all this towards that one new world order? Maybe. But I just think it's evil being evil, and we have to do something about, taking away those toys.
Now, uncovering all of this with our election systems has come at a great personal cost to you, Joe, including at one point a $1,000 a day fine. Whatever happened with that?
I paid it.
How much was that?
I paid almost $160,000 in fines over the last 5 years.
Ordered by the Colorado court system.
Yeah, I mean, look, we
Or
have
was that federal?
we have a journalistic privilege in this state, right? And it wasn't just Colorado court system, by the way. It was a federal system run by in a case that I wasn't even a party to that charged $1,000 a day. And I just so everyone understands, it's now all the information that I had several years ago that I had to let kind of people not know about. I had to sit on the sidelines about Eric Coomer's involvement, what I knew about Eric Coomer, his connection to foreign entities, his connection to people that, frankly, that is becoming more and more evident when it comes to foreign intelligence and the people that work for Dominion over in Serbia and people that work for Dominion in Canada that you're going to see come out more and more over the next couple of weeks. I had to not talk about that stuff, but the $1,000 fine and the fines that I got were directly related to the Antifa kid that gave me access to the call. Now, two things about that. One, I was on the call, so it wasn't secondhand information; it was firsthand information. And two, I live in a house with bulletproof glass, thermal cameras. I literally had personal security detail live in my home for 18 months. 2 people have been arrested at my home. Multiple people have come to my house to do harm to my wife and children. I had to have personal security detail on my son at the University of Denver while he was a student. They sent powder through the mail. I was poisoned in December of 2021. I've been attacked viciously. Frankly, I have to carry a gun everywhere I go. I have to check the cameras everywhere I go. I have the tightest security you're ever going to find in an office environment, and I've lived this life for 6 years. So why the hell would I give up some kid who does not have access to the type of things that I have access to and put him and his family in harm's way? I'm not a coward, and frankly, $160,000 is a penance to pay in order to protect one of my fellow brothers and sisters, regardless of whether or not I agree with his ideologies or where he came from previously.
So the $1,000 a day was because you would not snitch on the whistleblower.
Correct.
So snitches get stitches, but if you don't snitch, it's $1,000 a day fine.
So, yeah. Well, let's look at it differently. In the end, I will win. I will get my money back. Eric Coomer's going to lose in court. He basically had to sign an affidavit that he let foreign Serbian coders into the source code in Denver, Colorado, to do whatever they wanted to do. He had to admit that. Now, before that, he said he had nothing to do with it. Now, I know more about Eric Coomer and the other countries that he traveled to, such as Mongolia. I know the outcome of those elections. I can tell you some of the things that happened over in Ukraine, the connections between Dominion voting systems and what happened in Ukraine, which brings in a whole separate group of problems that we have related to Ukraine, because we've supported this idea that they were this innocent bystander in the Ukraine-Russian conflict, which, as more and more comes out, stuff I won't be able to tell you here, you'll be able to make up your own decision that history was definitely written by people who were really bad people that wanted to cover up some of the crimes where the epicenter were places like that, the devil's playground in Ukraine. So sooner or later, the truth comes out. We're sitting on piles of information related to John Polos, who is the CEO of Dominion, Eric Coomer, who's been caught committing perjury over and over and over again. And don't be surprised if over the next couple months, Eric Coomer is arrested for his treasonous, seditious behavior in this country, because it's coming. It's coming.
Were local races in Colorado stolen?
Yes.
All of them?
School board in Douglas County in the last election in 2024 stolen.
So, I mean,
Stolen.
who makes that call? Like,
I don't know.
I feel like that's a very critical piece of this, is figuring out who decides who wins these elections. I mean, I believe you that you can steal elections through these systems. I'm just wondering who's behind it. Who gets to make that call?
Well,
who
who's
put
keeping
Polis
us
in
from
place?
who's keeping the DOJ from getting access to the voter rolls in Colorado?
Tell me.
Jena Griswold, Jared Polis, Phil Weiser. Why would the Synagogue of Satan 3, why would they specifically keep them from information? And here's something else you should know. You know the ERIC system that Colorado was a part of,
Yep.
right? Do you know how many other states are a part of that system?
How many?
24, it's 25 total. Of the states that would not cooperate with the DOJ, how many of the states are a part of ERIC?
25.
All of them. All 25 have stopped the DOJ from getting access to the voter rolls, right? And look, I'm like a dog with a bone. First of all, I run a data company, so I'm the guy that literally I will research something to death. There's a guy named Raul that we interviewed that I had a friend in Italy have to go over to Romania that talked about his connection to Fox Telecom, which is a CIA stronghold over in the Balkans, right? So he was working for Fox, and his job was to recreate Social Security numbers and people from the United States that they could then ship and use in fraudulent elections in the United States. We had that information in April of 2022. That information is just now being read into record, and the information that was provided is now some of the same information that they're using in order to uncover some of the voter fraud and how the systems were able to create separate databases inside of like what we found in Mesa County, so that they could basically not just flip votes, but create a determined outcome.
Would a county clerk and recorder be able to spot that an election is stolen through these Dominion machines?
No.
And the idea that we have some sort of test to prove the legitimacy of these election results in the state of Colorado, what's up with that test? Is it
talking about
accurate?
The risk
limiting audit.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. It's a predetermined outcome for real votes. So if you're actually randomly picking votes in the system and pulling out the ballots and checking the ballots are accurate, how is that actually double checking the fact that you have fraudulent votes that were created by either phantom ballots or fraudulent ballots that were shipped through this, mail-in voting system, like the mail-in ballots? All right, where do you live, Jason? Do you live up north, south?
I'm in El Paso County.
Okay. So in El Paso County, you live in a house. Have you ever gotten any ballots to your house that are not people that live there?
I have not.
Okay. Do you know how many people have?
A lot.
Yeah. So you have all these ballots. So chaos favors the op, doesn't favor the people. When you have the ability to have no transparency, and you have this ADA system that can manufacture ballots out of thin air, and you basically have, it's the law of large numbers. You have a bunch of ballots from every jurisdiction. They come into different precincts. Is it easy to implement or push in ballots that don't exist into that environment?
It would be super easy.
So we know that, and we can see that, and then you can do what's called an analysis of the cast vote records. The cast vote records are, let's say that 100 people were standing in line, and those 100 people voted, right? And you might have a Democrat or Republican, and the cast vote records are it's a continuum of time. So it's not necessarily a timestamp, it's how they stood in line when they voted, right? Make sense?
100%.
So it's random. Like, you're not going to call up your buddies and have like, all right, all 6 of us Democrats are going to stand in line, and this is how we're going to vote. It's very random, right?
I would agree.
All right. So what I did is I took, and this is, by the way, just proofing that happens with people like Ed Solomon and Ben Cotton and Jeff Lemberg. These are experts, Sandia Labs experts. You have Draza Smith. And by the way, I want you to tell me the name of anyone on the left that they brought forward to say, here's an expert in systems, and they debunked everything that they said. You ever heard anybody's name?
Nope.
None. Except for a guy named Alex Halderman. Alex Halderman's the guy that brought forward and said, oh, pinky swear they didn't steal the election. Well, Alex Halderman works for the University of Michigan, and he was the one to first come forward and say that the elections are vulnerable and that he can basically change the outcome of election with a ballpoint pen, right? He said that. It was the curling vote down in Georgia. So when we take the cast vote records, there's a reason why I'm telling you this. When you take cast vote records and you run them precinct by precinct, what I did is I took 6 states, 24 precincts. I grabbed all the information on the cast vote records and I fed them into it in the exact, I fed it into AI program in the exact way that those votes came into the system, okay, in a line. And then I ran that against the algorithm that Eric Coomer wrote for his doctorate thesis, which is what's called an energy decay model. In other words, it's PID controllers, the ability to have a fixed outcome. And I ran that next to it and said, okay, how do I convert energy decay theory into a mathematical equation that could be used in elections? And I took that and I pushed it against the cast vote records, and I was like, does this align with these algorithms? Now there's this thing called R squared. And I know this is like way too, this is why, by the way, we lose people on this election fight. You have this thing called R squared, regression value, right? And basically it's anything over 0.8 it's pretty much foolproof, right? It was 0.996, 0.994, 0.998, which means it aligned perfectly. It didn't just happen in one precinct. It happened in 24 precincts in 6 states. Jason, how is that possible if it's a free and fair election?
It's not.
Why is it that this information, which has been shared across hundreds of experts, Democrat, Republican, Independent, that information never finds its way to the place where the mainstream media and or Dominion, ES&S, Smartmatic is held accountable for their behavior in these anomalous elections?
I mean, to keep all those people quiet, there's got to be something, right? At some point, enough people that care about this country would come together to save it, unless there's some sort of force acting against it that they're more loyal to. And I think that's where it comes back to, you know, how much money is floating around our politicians from foreign countries, particularly Israel.
AIPAC.
I mean, almost if you look at the Democrat minority leader in the House and the Speaker of the House, they're both making millions of dollars for their campaigns from AIPAC. And if you look at the Republicans and Democrats, this is about the only PAC that is equally funding both sides. And it's gotten to a point you almost can't. You can't win an election without AIPAC support, it seems.
Well, so we can if we had free and fair elections, and
100%.
We recognize that there's this conflict happening, right? Where they're saying nothing to see here. Dominion got a $787 million settlement. You have other people that have fallen off in these settlements against Eric Coomer. I've stayed the course because I never lied about anything ever, right? And here's another thing, Jason. I gave up selling my company for $253 million. I've lost $10 million over the last 6 years, and I don't care, right? I don't care. I could care less about the money. I care about the fact that my kids have to live in an environment that's being overrun by foreigners. Now, whether that's Israel with their influence and creating chaos and stealing the sovereignty of our nation, which, by the way, they've been in charge with that. They've been doing that for a long time in other nations as well. Or we're talking about internal interest. It starts with people that are put in positions of power who betray the very people they say they're there to represent, period.
So what's the strategy, Joe? You entered the governor's race in the state of Colorado, which is not going to be a free and fair election. What are you hoping to gain from this run?
Like and subscribe to this channel and come back tomorrow for more of this interview.